anything, stay calm, and we're gonna get started.
You can touch the table.
You can touch the table. Don't touch anything else.
Cannot touch the phone.
No, you're not gonna touch anything
Not
else.
the phone.
That's right. You got it right. Okay, so now let's let people start coming into the rooms. As you can see, we got one here, one there, and one there. But this one is we're streaming LinkedIn. We are here. Good morning, Facebook. We are here.
Yeah.
Rumble, YouTube, X, Instagram, and TikTok. All right, so we are all in. Let's see. Make sure our sound is good. All right, does it sound good? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so you can hear me. That sounds good. We're going to get started. Good morning, everybody.
Hear me.
Yes.
You not hear me.
Yes, you can hear me. Well, I'm going to be talking. You're going to be listening, all right, just like everybody else. So we're going to get started in about 30 seconds, everybody. Y'all see the topic. If you were here yesterday, then you already know we're going to be talking about this because we touched on it a little bit yesterday, and I asked people, well, what we touched on yesterday was how to go from being a good player to being a difference maker. And then I told you all that there's more to this topic. Told you that I would go into more detail about the mentality and the requirements of being that difference maker individual. Told you that I would do that, or I told you that I had it, and I asked people who were here yesterday if you wanted to hear me go deeper into. Wait a minute, you can't be adding ad libs while I'm talking. If you wanted to hear me go deeper into that subject, and people who were here yesterday said yes, we want to see you go deeper into that. So that's what we're going to do here today. So the topic.
Go here.
That's right.
Where to go?
Exactly.
Here.
Exactly. All right,
That's
you-
where to go. Here.
Okay, you're
That's
actually
where to stay. Here.
you're a little bit too good at talking. Now you're interrupting what I'm doing. So going from good player to difference maker, as we spoke about yesterday. All right, this is the game plan and the mindset behind doing it, and this is all assuming that you have enough game to have already earned the respect of your peers. So if you're going to be a difference maker, I'm going to make sure we're establishing as a baseline, you have to actually have some skills, okay? And good player and difference maker, good player, you got to at least be that to be a difference maker. This is a mindset, it is a decision, it's a choice, and a position that you step yourself into. And actually, let me set a, over on TikTok, I did this yesterday. I set a goal of lightning bolts, and we hit the goal. So let me see if I can do that again. So let's see, promote your goals over on TikTok, lightning bolts, and I don't know how to change the number, but I'm gonna set that goal. All right, do we got that goal set?
Yes.
Okay, here it is. Is it set? I think it is. Let me see if it's set. So I'm just setting the goal over on TikTok before we start. All right, here we go. So being a difference maker is, again, an elevation from being a good player. So this assumes that you already have the baseline requirements of you actually have some skill. You actually got some game. So that's what makes you a good player, meaning you can at least maintain the status quo of any organization that you're a part of, any team you're a part of, and you're not making them worse. You can keep them where they're at. You want to be a difference maker, the person who can take things to a higher level and make things better, then that's what we're going to talk about here today. And again, I'm talking about the requirements if you want to be this person. And before you decide you want to be a difference maker, I want you all to understand what the requirements are. So don't say yes, you want to be a difference maker until you understand what comes with it, what's going to be required of you in order to do this. Okay, so do not say yes to something that you don't know what you're saying yes to. All right, know what you're stepping into. So I appreciate the badges, whoever sent me a room so far over on TikTok. Okay, wait, son, you can't be interrupting me. I'm talking. You're just here to co-sign, but not too much. All right. So those of you who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete, author of 35 books and 4 TEDx talks. I created this brand called Work on Your Game. Our job here is we do 3 specific things: help you perform at your highest level, do so consistently, and produce more results. We are in the performance and the results business, and that's what we're going to help you do here today. And again, I'm going to explain the mentalities behind this. Then I'm going to let you decide what you want to do moving forward now that you understand what the game actually is. All right, everybody got that? All right, let's get into it. Point number 1, I have 1, 2, 3 points I'm going to share here today. When I'm done, I will take questions. So if you have a question or comment that you post, if you want to post it while I'm speaking, just go ahead and post it. I'll scroll through at the end and go through the comments. Or if you want to wait till the end, you can hold your comment till then. But I'll take comments in order in which they show up. And I'll tell you about our Work on Your Game University, which is the place where I do all of my coaching. If you want to work with us directly on the heels of what you hear here today, that's Work on Your Game University. I'll tell you about that later. So number 1, if you want to be a difference maker. All right, son, be quiet. Listen, be quiet. All right, that's all. Number one, accept that it's not just about you anymore. Okay? If you're going to be a difference maker, it is no longer just about you, meaning you can't just show up and do your thing and do your job, i.e. play your role, whatever your job description is. Just do your job and then say, hey, whatever else happened with the team or the organization, whatever else happened with the team or the organization, that's not my business. I ain't got nothing to do with that. Whatever happened with the team is not my problem because I did what I was supposed to do. You can't do that anymore when you become a difference maker.
Not my problem.
Yeah, now, see, he's gotten too good at talking, so now everything I say he can repeat. He's fine. No, he's fine. Yes, this is my son. Somebody else, this is my son. Who the hell else you think it is? Am I in daycare? Anyway, what is that? Oh, that's mine. Okay. So it's not just about you anymore. So let me give you an example. So let's say you're a basketball player. My background is in playing sports, as I told you. No, you can't touch that. You can't play with that. So let's say you play basketball and you come to the game and your team loses the game, but you had 30 points in the game. No, because you can't play with that anyway, even if you had it. That's mine. So you score 30 points, your team loses the game. Is that a good outcome? Now, if you're a good player, you might say yes, because look, I had 30 points. Not my fault we lost. I had 30. Any of you play basketball or watch basketball, you probably know players who fit that description, right? They are happy as long as they get their stats, as long as they get their highlights, as long as they got a bunch of fans on social media, and they can make their little clips of highlights of what they did in the game, even though their team lost. But hey, obviously it ain't my fault because I had 30. See, when you're a difference maker, here's the difference. When you're a difference maker, even if you score 30 and the team lost, that's not acceptable. See, the difference maker understands that they can't just look in the mirror at themselves anymore. They got to look at the whole organization and say, is the organization doing what it needs to do as well as me doing what I need to do? You have additional responsibilities when you're a difference maker. It's not just about how you feel and what you're doing and what you get for yourself. It's also about what everybody else in the organization gets. And the goal is to win the game for the team, not just what you individually do. So again, any of you who's an athlete or you follow sports, you understand this.
One.
Okay, you say what you got to say. Okay, so
One.
if you're, let's take, for example, I remember Kobe Bryant. Right? Most of you know who Kobe Bryant is, right? Kobe, you don't know Kobe Bryant. I think he was passed away before you were born. But Kobe Bryant, when his team he was doing his thing. I remember they lost the NBA Finals in 2008. Kobe had won MVP that year. At that point, he'd been in the league a little over 10 years. It was well established. Kobe's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Even then, at that point, they lost in the NBA Finals that year, even though Kobe had been the guy. He was scoring his points, doing his stuff. He didn't play amazing in that Finals. All the defense was targeted towards him, but he was the best player for the Lakers. They lost, and he said, listen, this is not acceptable. Our goal is to win championships. My goal is not to get stats or get highlights or make the All-Star game or score 30 points. The goal is to win championships because Kobe, everybody knows he modeled himself in the mold of Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan's thing was he won all those championships, not stats, but the championships. So Kobe said, I got to toughen my teammates up so that if we get in the finals again, they will be ready to compete and we can't get bullied and pushed around by the Boston Celtics like we did in 2008. So what did Kobe do? Okay, get down. So get down. That's enough. Mommy's in there. Go ahead. All right. Okay, I'm going to talk. Okay, here we go. Let me continue. So Kobe decided that in the next season, 2009, when they played against the Orlando Magic, and then the season after that, 2010, when they played against the Celtics again, he toughened his teammates up because his focus was on the team needs to win. He was not satisfied with the fact that he had just gotten his own stats, his own accolades, and his own awards. So this is why being a difference maker is bigger than just you. I'm giving you just an example there with Kobe Bryant. You can apply this in business. You can apply this in your family life. You can apply this in any volunteer organization you're a part of, like a church or a community organization, anywhere where you are part of a group. If you're going to be a difference maker, the success of the group is your priority. It is not your personal gain. It is not your personal accolades. It's not what everybody says about you personally. That is not exclusive. It is not separate from what's happening with the group. If the group is not successful, you are not successful when you're a difference maker, even if the outside world says you're great. Again, Think of a basketball player who's scoring 30 points a game. Most of the fans will say, well, you're great. You're scoring 30 points per game. But if the team is losing, then that player, if they're a serious difference maker, they don't just accept that they're great because the team's losing. Like, I'm on a team that's losing. I can't be great. If I'm great, that means we'd be winning, because greatness is about winning. It's not just about stats. Everybody understand what I'm saying here? And I'm using stats just as a metaphor here, but this is the point. So even when things are not your fault, they are your responsibility. This is the mindset of the difference maker. Even when it's not your fault, it is your responsibility. And if someone doesn't do their job, you have to fix it. If one of your teammates doesn't want to perform or do what they're supposed to do today, and you see that they're not really bringing it the way they're supposed to bring it, you have to fix it, and you have to fill in the gap that they are not able to deliver on. It's your job. And you pick up the slack for what everybody else didn't do. And this is the reason why the difference maker role is not one that's so easy to accept. So this is why I told you all, be careful saying you want to be a difference maker before you understand the requirements of the game. I'm telling you the requirements right here. So when someone else on your team doesn't do what they're supposed to do, you still got to do what you're supposed to do, and you got to do their job. You got to do all of it. And if it doesn't all get done, it all comes back on you, and you're responsible for that lack of performance. Is your responsibility, again, even though it wasn't your fault. It wasn't you who didn't show up to work. It's them who didn't show up to work. So if you run a business, for example, you got a local restaurant and you have 15 employees, and on one particular night, you got 8 people on the schedule, but 2 people called out, they won't be at work. So one of your cooks is missing and one of your hosts is missing. Your business still has to run, right? Y'all still got to make some money, and you still got to make some sales that night, because if you had too many nights not making any sales, you're going to go out of business. So you got to figure out somehow, some way to get that host job done and to get the slack picked up in the kitchen. Even though your 2 employees are the ones who didn't show up, you as the owner of the business or the manager or whoever the difference maker is in the room, they still have to do something to clean up or pick up the slack for what everybody else did not do. That is the role of the difference maker. And this is not an easy job, because let me remind you of something, or inform you if you didn't know. When you're part of an organization or part of a team, you will routinely, almost every single day, have somebody who isn't doing their job the way they're supposed to. If you are part of an organization, you will routinely have someone in some way who is not doing the job that they are supposed to do for whatever reason. They're tired, they're sick, they sprained their ankle yesterday, it's too cold outside, it's too hot outside, their kid has a fever so they can't come to work, their car broke down, the buses was late, whatever it is. When you're part of an organization, especially when you're the head, like a manager, a coach, a boss, an owner, a best player, whatever it is, you're always going to have somebody not doing their job completely like they're supposed to, damn near every day. And you have to fill in the gaps for those people every single time. And any of you who's ever been a leader in an organization, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have experienced this. There's always something where you're the leader. There's always something that you have to do because somebody else didn't do what they were supposed to do. This is your job. And again, this is not every once in a while. It's anytime is your role. This is what you're signing up for. Man, I'm spending a lot of time on this point because I want to make sure all of you understand. If you want to be a difference maker, this is what you got to do. Of course, there are benefits to this, but I'm telling you the other side, because the benefits part you can guess for yourself. That part you don't have a problem filling in. I'm telling you the cost. You know how people say the cost to be the boss? Y'all heard that phrase before? Or I'm telling you the costs right now. These are the costs. You want to be the boss, this is what you got to pay. And it's important for you to accept this emotionally, not just logically. Because logically, I think all of you get what I'm saying. But the emotional acceptance is even when you don't feel good and you don't feel like working, because listen, everybody else has days they don't feel like working. And guess what? Don't you have days when you don't feel like working? And if you listen to me right now, do you have days when you don't feel like working? Of course you do. Guess what? You can't not work. See, you can't call in sick when you own the business. Ain't no such thing. You can't have an off day when you're the best player on the team. I mean, you can, but the team's going to get destroyed and it's all going to make you look bad. So you can't have an off day when you're the head person and you're the person sitting at the head of the table because the whole team is depending on you. So many people will logically accept this even when not a difference maker. But the real difference is you accepting this emotionally through your actions, because you got to show up every single time, even when nobody else is showing up. Everybody got that part? Let's move on to point number 2. And by the way, I will address all questions and comments at the end. If anybody has a question or comment, if you post it while I'm talking, I'll address it when I'm done. Moving on to point number 2. When you're a difference maker, no finger pointing allowed. You can't finger point. The only finger pointing you can do is at yourself when you're looking in the mirror. You can't finger point at anybody else in the organization. Doesn't mean you can't reprimand them and tell them that they need to step their game up. But when it's time for things to get done, you can't point at anybody else because everybody else is pointing at and looking at you. They're expecting you to show up and deliver and do what needs to be done because you're the head person. You can't finger point at anybody. Pointing fingers is no longer in your repertoire once you become a difference maker. Because remember, everything's on you. Remember, you're the difference maker. They're not the difference makers. You're the difference maker. So if something's not working, you got to point at you and say, all right, I need to figure this out. Not you got to figure it out. Not you need to step it up. No, you can't do any of that in the heat of the moment when you're the difference maker. Things don't happen to you. You happen to things. When you're the difference maker, let me say it again. Things don't happen to you. You happen to things. This is a mentality. This is an approach. It's not some logical thing that you can hold in your hand, but it's a way of thinking. And any of you who has known or you know someone who fits the mold of a difference maker, look at them and weigh how you see them against everything that you're hearing here today, and you'll see, like, damn, that person really is a difference maker. They're not the person who has stuff happen to them. And that doesn't mean that things don't happen. Things happen to everybody in life. But the mentality is, I'm not going to stop what I was planning on doing just because this thing occurred. I'm still going to find a way to make it happen because that's the decision that you've already made. And the root word of decision comes from incision. And if you actually break down decision to its etymology, that means where the word comes from. It comes from a Latin word, decidere, which means to cut off. Decision means you're cutting off every other possibility besides the one that you have decided to achieve. And difference makers make decisions. They don't offer suggestions. Difference makers make decisions. They don't offer suggestions. They don't think about what they want or hope for what they want or wish or ask. They make a decision and then they go about making that decision turn out properly. That's what a difference maker does. Doesn't mean the difference maker is always right, but they make decisions and they act on their decisions. Whereas good players may have a thought, an idea, a hope, a wish, but they never really put it into active use. They just think about it. All right, how many of you got some things you want to do in your life that you're thinking about? A lot of people spend a lot of time thinking about stuff. Difference makers do stuff. Someone has sent me an email. It was an email conversation I was having with a person. We're recording this. It's early October. And this person was saying to me that they wanted to join our university and work with me as a coach. And I said, all right, well, let's get started. Let's do what we got to do. And this person said, well, I want to make sure I'm clear on what I'm doing, et cetera, et cetera. I said, okay, well, that's part of actually what we do is help people get clear on what they're doing. This person said, well, I want to get started at the beginning of the new year because I want to take some time to get clear on my goals. And it was interesting and at the same time not, because this person is basically saying to me that they need 3 months to get clear on their goals. See that kind of adding time to a situation? All right, this is one of the reasons why people come up short in life, period. And I'm going to tell this person that when I have a conversation with them, if I have a conversation with them, because adding time to a situation, difference maker does not have that luxury. You got to go and do stuff. And you want to do things as soon as possible rather than doing things later. A lot of people add a lot of time and they add delay to situations as if you have unlimited time, which nobody does. Okay, so let me continue here. We're still on point number 2. You can't pass off responsibility at any moment you're a difference maker. Everything's on you at the end of the day. So anybody who doesn't fill in and do what they're supposed to do, you pick up the slack for what they didn't do. Everybody got that? Something needs to be different, you make it different. Something needs to change, you make it change. But anything that does occur has to be done by you. So let's move on to point number 3. We're talking here today about the mentalities and the requirements of being a difference maker if you want to be one. Number 3, your energy equals the group's energy. The group takes on your energy. However you're showing up, that's the way that the group is going to show up. I mentioned this yesterday when I was talking about the difference between the good players and the difference makers. Dennis Rodman, who played with Michael Jordan in those last 3 years when the Bulls were winning championships in the late 90s, he said, you have no idea the pressure was lifted off your shoulders when Michael Jordan's on your team because every night you feel like you have a chance to win just because Michael is on the team. And Dennis Rodman, again, he wasn't a bum. Dennis Rodman's a Hall of Fame player. He's a great player in his own right. And he said that about his teammate, Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan didn't say that about him. Dennis Rodman said it about Mike. And the point being that it emphasizes the point that I'm making here. Your energy is the group's energy. The group feels like they have a chance to be successful as a group because you are part of the group. Not because of the group as a whole, but because you're a part of the group. As long as he's here, we got a chance to win. And it was the same thing with, speaking of Michael Jordan, back in 1995 when he came out of his baseball hiatus, the Chicago Bulls went from being an okay team, they were solid, they were going to make the playoffs, to, oh, we got a chance to win a championship because we got this guy on the team. In the first playoff game they played that year, in the first round, Michael Jordan had 48 points in the first game. I was looking at the highlights from that the other day, as a matter of fact. The point being, the difference maker makes everybody else feel like they have more chance to be successful just because the difference maker is in the room. So again, I want you to take, I said this yesterday and I'll say it here today. Everything I'm saying here today, if you plan on or you have aspirations of being a difference maker, you need to take everything I'm saying here today and hold yourself accountable to it and ask yourself, am I doing this? Am I living up to these standards? Do the people around me feel like they have more chance to be successful because I'm here? Or am I, just a person out there doing things for myself, which is cool, but is not making everybody else feel more galvanized, energized, confident, that we have more potential to be successful? See, when you're a difference maker, that's how people around you feel. That just because they're near you, they feel better, they feel more confident, they feel more activated, they feel they have more chance to be successful and to make things happen just because you are around. As you go, they go. All right, that's the way it works when you're a difference maker. How you go is how they go, which means as a difference maker, you cannot afford to have an off day. You can't afford to have a day where you don't feel like it. You can't afford to have a day where your energy is not there, or you didn't really show up, or you kind of mailed it in, as we say, where you showed up, but you didn't really give much effort and you kind of sleepwalked through the situation. See, you can do that when you're a good player. You can't do that when you're a difference maker. You don't have that luxury anymore. Again, all of this stuff is no longer in your repertoire. It's not in your repertoire to point fingers. Not in your repertoire to have an off day. It's not in your repertoire to loaf through or go through the motions, as sports coaches like to say. You can't just go through the motions when you're a difference maker. You got to show up every single time because everybody else in the group is following your lead. So if you don't show up, nobody is showing up. And the whole organization is going to fall apart. Everybody get this? So this is why I said that today's topic, this is all about mentality. Nothing that I said here today. There's not a single thing I'm saying here today that has anything to do with a skill set. All of you could do everything that I'm saying here today if you want to. I'm not telling you that you have to, because there are very few difference makers out there. Difference makers are few and far between. Most organizations, if they have any difference makers, there's only a handful of them. You can count them on one hand, depending on the size of the organization. And you might not even need all your fingers. So being a difference maker is an option. You don't have to do this. You absolutely don't have to do this. Many people simply won't do this because the requirements are too much. All right, this is asking too much. I didn't make this up. Actually, I did make it up. But these requirements have always existed for someone who wants to occupy this role. Maybe it's had a different name. People labeled it different, talk about it different. But this concept has always existed. And the costs to be this are pretty steep. Not everybody wants this. All right, you can't afford bad energy days when you're a difference maker. Over here, we call that the third day. It's that red book that you see right above my head. And if you're watching on this screen, it's that book right there. Third day is all about how you show up and what kind of effort you give on the days that you don't really feel like showing up. I mentioned Michael Jordan. I remember the game where he had the flu or whatever that was, food poisoning, the flu, whatever it was, against the Utah Jazz. And then he went out and scored all those points and the Bulls won the game and they ended up winning the championship the next game. That's an example of what a difference maker has to do. When you feel terrible, you still got to go out and perform, because the rest of the team, they're not going to pick up the slack for you. You got to pick up the slack for them. So when they don't show up, you got to do their job. But when you don't show up, they do not do your job. So this is not fair. All right, this is not equitable. When you're a difference maker, it is not fair. It is not a trade-off. It's not, hey, I did something for you yesterday. You got to do something for me today. No. That's no longer in your repertoire, difference maker. You can't do that. You can't pull that on people when you're a difference maker. You got to pick up their slack. They don't pick up your slack. They can't pick up your slack. All right, that's why you're a difference maker. They can't do what you do. And this is the role that you take on. So another thing, difference maker is no longer in your repertoire to complain. You can't complain when you're a difference maker. You can't complain about what the other people on your team are not doing. I'll give you another example from basketball. Those of you who are basketball players or basketball fans or followers of basketball. I'm from Philadelphia, PA. I live in Miami, Florida. I'm from Philadelphia, so I want to see my hometown, Philadelphia 76ers, be successful. And those of you who follow basketball, the best player on the Sixers right now is a guy named Joel Embiid. And obviously, he's a very good player. We know he's good. He won the MVP a couple years ago and has been putting up great numbers, stats, et cetera, for years. The problem with the Sixers is that Joel Embiid is the best player on the team, and he's the leader of the team. Problem is that Joel is not a difference maker. He's a good player, a very good player. All right, but he's not a difference maker. He's a very good player. Problem is, it's hard to win a championship without a difference maker on your roster. It's very difficult. And I'll give you an example based off of what I just told you. When the Sixers lost in the playoffs, I believe it was 2 years ago, they played against, it was the Boston Celtics 2 years ago. This is when James Harden was still on the team. So either 2 or 3 years ago. They lost in Game 7. In that playoff series, they were up 3-2. They lost the last 2 games. And Joel did not play well in those last 2 games, and neither did Mr. James Harden, who's another good player who is not a difference maker. They were on the team together. They were 2 best players on the team. And I knew that team wasn't going to win a championship because their 2 best players are 2 guys who are not difference makers. And Joel, after they lost that Game 7, he said in the media session after the game, well, I can't do everything. And James Harden, we can't do everything. We need other people on the team to step up. That sentence right there is the antithesis of being a difference maker. That goes against everything that I just told you about being a difference maker. You can't say that when you're a difference maker. And anytime you hear somebody say that, you automatically know. Just check the box. That person's not a difference maker. They can be very, very good at what they do. Joel Embiid is one of the best basketball players in the world. Doesn't make you a difference maker. Difference makers can never blame their teammates, their coworkers, as the saying goes from back in the day, a good craftsman never blames his tools. Those of you who are watching on Rumble, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, and Facebook. I'm sorry I had my mic so far away the whole time. This is a good mic, so I know y'all still heard me, but didn't even remember it was so far away from me. So when you are a difference maker, you cannot blame your tools because the tools didn't do what you wanted them to do. You cannot blame your teammates, even though your teammates might suck. You can't blame your coworkers, even though your coworkers are trash. Now, if you need to replace some people, get them replaced. But you can't blame them. There's a difference. There's a difference between saying, okay, these people got to go and we got to get some other people here. We got to get the wrong people off the bus and we got to get the right people on the bus. When you're a leader, you do need to do that. That is a responsibility, but you can't blame them when you come up short. When you come up short, you got to say, what do I need to do? So again, let me go back to Kobe Bryant. I told you they lost in the NBA Finals in 2008 after Kobe had just won the damn MVP. So clearly Kobe was a very good player, at least a very good player. But the way that he handled that loss shows you that he was a difference maker because he said, I need to step my game up. He just won the MVP. He just won the MVP of the league, and his response to losing in the finals was, I need to step my game. I got to do something different so that we can win the championship. He didn't say, hey, I just won MVP. All right, talk to my teammates. Don't ask me what I got to do. I did good. Let me do the same thing again next year. Maybe I got to get some better teammates. See, he didn't say that. That's what Joel Embiid said. That's how James Harden talks. It's not how Kobe talked. It's not how Michael Jordan talked. People who are difference makers, they don't talk like that. When they come up short, they look in the mirror, not out the window. Michael Jordan, for example, this will go further back. Many of you may not be able to reference this, but I'll tell you the story. When the Chicago Bulls, before they started winning championships in the 90s, they kept making the playoffs but losing, and they kept losing to the Detroit Pistons over and over and over again. Many of you know this story. If you saw the documentary, they talked about it. After they lost to the Pistons for the 3rd year in a row, which was in 1990, and they started winning championships in 1991, Michael Jordan was the guy. All right, he was clearly, every player in the league said Michael Jordan's the best player. Magic Johnson said he's the best player in the world. Larry Bird said he's the best player in the world. Everybody said Michael Jordan's the best player, but he hadn't won the championship yet. So Michael Jordan already had won MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, All-Star Game. He already had his sneakers. He already had the endorsements. Everyone was already saying he's the best. All right, there was no question about it. Michael Jordan's the best. And he was still losing in the playoffs. Michael Jordan still didn't say, hey, it's my teammates. He said, what can I do? That's what Michael Jordan. He said, what can I do? Even though everyone already said he was the best. See, that's the mindset of a difference maker. And I'm giving you these examples here because I'm setting the table. I want to make sure that if you decide this is the role you want to play, or the road you want to take, all of this, you got to do the same thing. You can't blame anyone. You can't blame anything, even when they mess up. And people will mess up, by the way, because most people are not on your level. So they're going to make mistakes that you would never make. They'll come up short where you don't come up short, and you still can't blame them. And again, this is not nearly as easy nor as fun as it sounds. It sounds good when I'm talking about it, right? It sounds, some of you listening to this, you're motivated, you're inspired, you're activated. You're like, yeah, I'm going to go and be a difference maker. Okay, I believe you. I don't think you're lying. I got lost. I got muted over on LinkedIn. All right, we back LinkedIn. Whenever I move this mic, the sound is coming out for some reason. But anyway, it sounds motivating. It sounds inspiring. It sounds activated. And hopefully you are motivated, inspired, and activated. However, putting this stuff into action is a whole different ballgame. There's a whole different ballgame putting this stuff into action when you actually got to show up and you got to actually do this. Because the next time that someone on your team, because right now, maybe you're just listening to this and it feels good, but the next time someone on your team doesn't show up and do their job, how are you going to respond to that? You're going to get mad at them. You're going to get annoyed with them. You're going to start complaining, even in your own head. See, even in your own head, you can't complain about your team. I'm not saying like out loud complaining, like Joel Embiid or James Harden complaining about their teammates. I'm not even saying like that. Just in your own head. What's your immediate response when someone on your team doesn't do their job? Is it you start getting mad in your mind at them? Or do you say, what do I need to do to pick up the slack of what this person is not doing? See, it's the default response that makes the difference. It's not what you say publicly. It's not what you say to them. It's the default response. Is it, man, this person messed up again? Or is it, what do I got to do to fix this? And again, if you are head of an organization, sometimes you do got to get some of the wrong people out of there and get some of the right people in there. With Michael Jordan's team, that happened. The team that he was on when he first came to the league was not the same team when he won the championship. Some of those players got shipped out and new players came in. And some players were there the whole time and they got better along with him. Same thing with Kobe Bryant. When Joel Embiid, for example, when he lost, they keep losing in playoffs every year. And after he had won MVP, he was on TV last summer, as a matter of fact, and this was like in the finals, I believe. And Paul George was a guest on whatever TV show he was talking about. And Joel was dropping all these hints to Paul George, like, hey, we got to get some help on my team. This is Joel talking. Got to get some help on my team so we can go win the championship. And he was kind of alluding to Paul George, and now Paul George is on the Sixers. Well, Paul George is a good player, very good player. Joel Embiid, very good player. Neither one of them is a difference maker. So this is why, even though they have all that talent on the Sixers this year, I am still skeptical of their ability to win a championship, because to win a championship, you need a difference maker. They ain't got one. So if I end up being wrong, you can hold this video, you can download this, and you can hold it against me. You can put it on the internet, and you can even send it to Joel Embiid, and he could use it for motivation. But from what I've seen from that guy and what I've heard from him, he is a very good player. All right? I'm not saying he's a bad player. He ain't no difference maker. He doesn't have the mentality, and no one in that organization, because the Sixers is an organization, not just the basketball team, but the organization, nobody holds him accountable for not performing. When he hasn't performed, nobody's held him accountable. When he's not in shape, nobody holds him accountable. He says things like, well, I need some help. Like, dude, you won the MVP. What you mean you need help? You're the help. All right, you're the help for everybody else. They're not the help for you. You're the help for them. See, that's another thing about being a difference maker, folks. When you're a difference maker, you can't look at your people and say, well, I need them to be better. No, you got to say, I need to be better because they can only do so much. I know what they're capable of. Everything they can't do, I got to do. That's your mentality. Everything they can't do, I got to do. And if you don't do it, it ain't happening. And when you have a chance, hey, maybe you can get some better people around you. But when it's time to perform, you ain't got time for that. It's either perform or lose. It's win or lose. And it's a binary out here in this world. So there's no gray area. Ain't no participation trophies out here in the world that I come from. You win or you lose. It is binary. You need to define what winning means to you so that you know when you're winning and you know when you're losing and you know when you need to make adjustments. And the first adjustment you make is with the person in the mirror, not the people out the window. Everybody got what I'm saying here? So again, you have to experience this stuff because, again, it sounds fun when I'm talking about it. But the next time someone on your team doesn't show up and you don't really feel like doing anything because you did what you were supposed to do, but now you got to do their job for them, we'll see how you feel then. Let's see how motivated and inspired and activated you are then. All right, you feel it now. You feel good now. All right, let's see how you feel when it's time to actually do this stuff. As the saying goes, everybody wants to be a beast till it's time to do what a beast does. All right, everybody wants to be a lion until it's time to go hunt and kill something. All right, that's a whole different game than just talking about it. So again, feel good now. I ain't mad at you for feeling good, but there's a whole different ball game when you got to go do it. So the question is, do you want to be a difference maker or do you want to be a good player? With everything that I've said here, now you got it all laid on the table. Now you get to make a decision. Do you want to be a difference maker or do you just want to be a good player? Because you can make a good living and have a good career and be well taken care of by being a good player. I just gave you an example of a couple of good players. And you can do very well being a good player. You can get yourself a good job, get paid every 2 weeks, know the check is coming, take care of your family, and retire and ride off into the sunset. You can be a good player if you want to. You have that option. I'm not mad at you if you do that. As a matter of fact, most people are good players. Well, some people are just complete bums. We don't need to talk about them. But most people are good players. Only few people are difference makers. If you want to be a difference maker, I just laid out the requirements as it told you everything that comes with it and everything you got to do. And now you get to decide what you want to do. But don't decide with your words. Decide with your actions. Because people can say anything. And all of you who's an adult, you have enough experience in life of knowing people can and will say anything. But you often have seen people say one thing, but their actions were different than their words, right? Okay, so if you want to be a difference maker, you got to go do difference maker things. So let me recap these points here. Again, we're talking about the requirements and what it will take if you want to go from being a good player, merely a good player, to really being a difference maker. Number one, accept that it's not just about you anymore. It's about the entire organization, which means if someone on the team doesn't do their job, you have to pick up the slack for them. And you can't get mad at them because they just are who they are, a good player, and you are who you are, which is difference makers. It means it is your normal job to pick up the slack for everybody else. It is not their job to pick up the slack for you. They never will because they can't. Number two, no finger pointing. Unless you're pointing your finger at yourself, at the person in the mirror. You cannot blame your teammates the same way a good craftsman never blames his tools. You cannot blame your teammates. They are tools. And if the tool doesn't do the job, then who put the tool into place to try to do a job they can't do? You did. You're a difference maker. So how'd you put somebody in a role that they can't perform in? That's your responsibility. And yes, everything is your responsibility, even when it's not your fault, even when someone else is clearly messing up. And the fans can say that person's messing up. That guy couldn't make a layup. This person can't make an open three-pointer. If you're the difference maker, it's your fault if the team loses. Again, Kobe Bryant, when they lost in 2008, he took the responsibility for the team losing. He didn't say my teammates got to get better. He said, I got to get better. And maybe in his mind, he thought, I got to do something to make my teammates better. And that's what he did. But he took the responsibility. That's the point that I want you to get. He takes the responsibility. Responsibility means ability to respond. And responsibility comes with a package deal called power. You want power in life, you must take responsibility. And you cannot give it away. You give away responsibility, you give away power. And if you're giving away power, you're not a difference maker. You can be a good player giving away power, but you can't be a difference maker giving away power. Again, the example I gave you, Joel Embiid gives away power. Oh, I got to get better teammates. I can't do everything. You ain't do everything. Just lost in the playoffs. How are you doing everything? Everything means winning the championship. All right. So if you're doing everything, you have a championship right now, but you don't. You're going home because you didn't do everything. So again, this is why he's not a difference maker and why I'm skeptical of the Sixers being able to win a championship, regardless of the amount of talent they have, because none of those guys is a difference maker. They're all good players. Number three, your energy is the group's energy. The group is following your lead. So if you show up sluggish and not ready to perform, then the rest of the group is going to be worse than that. If you want to take the day off, the rest of the group is going to take the day off. If you are complaining and whining and bitching, then the group is going to complain, whine, and bitch. The group is going to look and feel and perform just like you look, feel, and perform, which means if you want the group to be consistent and performing every day, guess what you got to do? That sounds easy, right? It sounds fun until you got to do it. Until you hit that third day, until you hit that wall and you don't really feel like that day, you don't really feel like performing. The day you don't really feel like going to work, the day you really, really, really don't feel like having to do everybody else's job for them. Let's see what you do then. All right, then we're going to find out if you really mean it. All right, so it's not nearly as easy or as fun as it sounds when I'm talking about it. Again, you have to accept all of this emotionally, not just logically. Logically, if you've been listening to me this whole time, you got the point of what I'm saying. Question is, do you accept it emotionally? Will you actually do it when it's time to do it, especially when you don't feel like it? As the saying goes, everybody's a beast till it's time to do what a beast does. All right, everyone wants to be a beast till it's time to go hunt and kill something and take the life of that gazelle and eat it, because if you don't, you're going to die. See, everyone's a beast till it's time to actually go do the stuff. So again, you feel good right now. Let's see what you do. All right, don't answer this with your words, answer it with your actions. If you want to be a difference maker. Remember, folks, this is optional, what I'm sharing with you here. This is not a requirement. With all that said, all right, you want to work with me directly is at workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's the place where I do all of my coaching. You get access to all of our courses, trainings, and you get direct access to me. And that's the only way that you get that, by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. The link's down below in the description. I'm going to take questions and comments now. If you got one, put it in the comment section wherever you're at, and we'll go through. So somebody asked me earlier, was that my son? Yes, that's my son. I'm not running a daycare. So you see me holding the baby, it's going to be mine. All right. So, or maybe I would say a niece or a nephew, but my sister, I got one sister and her kids are too big to get held in the lap. So yes, mine. Someone said, how long I've been playing basketball? Well, I stopped playing almost 10 years ago. So I played before that for almost 10 years. So let me see what we got. Nothing over on LinkedIn. Let me see what we got on TikTok. You got a question or comment on TikTok? I'm looking at that now. Then I'm going to do Instagram next. Excuse me. Workonyourgameuniversity.com, by the way. Those of you are ready to take the next step to step your game up and step your life up. That's where it happens at workonyourgameuniversity.com. And let me see. Kathy, what's going on? Good morning. LFATV got the #1 gifter badge. All right, good stuff. Thank you for the gift, whatever that is, whatever the gift was that you gave me. Kathy, thank you. You said he was cute. I don't think you were talking about me. You're talking about my son. Jugga V, what's going on? Good morning. Let's see. I'm trying to see if I had any other comments here. Nothing. Rod Lang 82, what's going on? Good morning. Steven said, phoned it in, mailed it in. As well as both. Mailed it in is a thing back when people could actually send physical mail. People still send physical mail, but it's not as popular. So mailing it in is what they used to call it. And people call it phoned it in as well. I mean, you get the point. Tillman Gibbons, what's going on? Good to see you. Bob Lee says, teach me how to tie a tie like that. Go on YouTube. YouTube will show you how to tie a tie. All right, let's see if we got anything on Instagram that I need to address. Actually, you can probably find it on TikTok. You probably find it on TikTok even faster than YouTube. Our Ariel Inspires says, difference makes decisions, not suggestions. That's right. Exactly. That's right. You got it. You got it. Ariel Inspires. You got it. Okay, so I addressed everything. So for everyone who is maybe new around here, I do these lives Monday through Friday at 8:00 a.m. Eastern. So if you like this one, come back for the next one. Again, I do these on a regular basis. It's different topics. Sometimes, actually, it's always in the vein of personal or professional development. So something that's going to make you better, make you stronger, help you achieve your goals faster, get from where you are to where you want to go, assuming there is somewhere that you actually want to go. That's what you get when you come over here. Work on Your Game University. When you are ready to get serious about taking the next step and having me as your direct coach in the process, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. And that is that. If you want to reach me, I just told you where to do it. And if you want to watch these, I just told you how to do that too. So today I'm recording this on a Friday, so you'll see the next one on Monday. Everybody have a great day. We out here.